bookworms!
Welcome back to our channel.
My name is Icy
And I'm Ivy.
and we're going to talk about the books we've read in January.
And while we talk about the books, we're gonna put on a clay mask.
Because it's late at night and we're not really bothered to put makeup on.
So without any further ado,
Let's start.
let's start.
You go first.
So I read 6 books in January.
And I've only read 4.
So the first book I've read is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. It's about a 22-year-old girl who discovered a robot of some sort that is, I think, out of this planet, but it looks very, very cool. She made a video about it and uploaded it on YouTube, and she went viral everywhere all over the world. It's a contemporary sci-fi-ish kind of. I wanted to read it because I've been following Hank Green on Twitter and he's very witty, and I sometimes watch his videos on YouTube. This is his first series he's written, so it's pretty interesting to see how he writes. What I like about it is I pretty much relate to the main character and how awkward she is. We're awkward like that. There are so many pop culture references in this book, like memes and social media, TV shows, and the way he writes the antagonist will make you really hate him. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a pretty good book and I can't wait to read the rest of the series because this just came out last year, so looking forward to this series.
The first book I read and finished, Sadie by Courtney Summers. A young adult contemporary book about 2 sisters. The younger sister gets murdered and the older sister, Sadie, tries to do her own investigation of her sister's disappearance and death by herself. The narrative consists of Sadie's point of view and then a podcast series where this guy, I forgot his name, follows the case of Sadie. So I wanted to read this book mainly because I read Courtney Summers' This Is Not a Test, which is a zombie apocalypse young adult book last year, and I really liked her writing style. This book came up in the suggestions. I've heard a lot of good reviews about it. I think the book was very dark. It's very Gone Girly with a bit of The Female of the Species by Mindy McGuinness. I gave it all the and you can actually feel the effects of abuse and neglect through the characters. And the writing style is very good. But I gave it like a 3.75 out of 5 stars.
Why?
Because it was just too dark. It made me feel so horrible.
If comparing it to The Female of the Species, which one is darker?
The Female of the Species was a bit intense too. They're both intense, but I was younger then. I don't know, maybe it felt like I needed I don't know, it was the beginning of the year and I guess I needed a little uplifting read. Yeah, it just made me feel so horrible. But I would recommend it to fans of Courtney Summers, Mindy McGuinness, and other mystery, thriller, contemporary young adult readers.
I wanna read it. It's in my TBR. So the next book I've read is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. It is the 6th book of the Harry Potter series. Don't have to explain what's about.
No.
I listened to it again on audiobook. I really enjoyed Stephen Fry's narration. Stephen Fry's narration, and I also had the physical copy of the book, so I was reading along, listening to him.
We binge watched Harry Potter 1 to 7.5 from Friday to Sunday. It was good. It's getting tight.
But I really love the Harry Potter series. I gave this a 5, obviously.
I wish I could read it again, like the whole thing. But I've watched it already and I'm not a big rereader. Maybe you'll rewatch the whole Harry Potter series again one day. The second book I read and DNF this year. It's one of the highest rated books and one of the books that is so hyped by a lot of booktubers. And this is gonna be an unpopular opinion. But I didn't like The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's about, see, just talking about it makes me feel adorable. So it's about like the fairy world and the human world, and then there's this lady who had a baby with a fairy, but she took the half-fairy baby to the human world and then married a human, and then the fairy king, who's the father of the half-fairy baby, went to kill the woman and her husband and took half-fairy baby, her human siblings with him, to the fairy world. The protagonist is one of the human siblings. Her name is June. And then June tries to prove herself to the fairies that she's worth the fairy life, because it's like Kingdom where you have to prove yourself that you want to be like, I don't know, you want to be a warrior or something, I don't know. It's a very enchanting and magical world, but I found that there's a lack of description of things, especially with like little creatures. There's creatures called sprites, just like, oh, there were sprites around. And then I was like, what's a sprite? And then there's like underwater creatures. I don't know if they're like animals or they're supposed to be half human.
So she doesn't explain it, like how it looks like.
Like what are sprites?
What do they do?
Yeah, are they like rabbits? I DNF'd it because I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't. I just thought it was overhyped. It wasn't as enchanting as I thought it would be. This does not spark joy.
So the graphic novel I read is Saga Volume 9. I think I've mentioned in one of the videos that the 9th volume is one of the last ones, but it's not. I was expecting it to wrap up everything in this volume, but I don't know where I heard it. And
Maybe I assumed it.
Yeah, I assumed it was the last one, and it was like, what happened to this guy? What happened to this guy? And then it said, to be continued. So Saga is about planets who are fighting against each other.
People with wings and people with horns, and they live in two separate planets, and then there's a war, and then have them, like there's one horn and one wing, and they have like
they had a forbidden love child, and then the worlds after them. It's one of my favorite graphic novels, and I think it's gonna be a long wait after this volume. Obviously, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars.
I gotta read this.
Yeah. The other book I've read is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. So it's a retelling of The Little Mermaid, but a little bit darker
And violent.
But instead of Little Mermaid, she's a siren. There's a huge difference between a siren and a mermaid. In this book, the mermaids are ugly and the sirens are the beautiful ones. What got me reading it is because of this one. I think it's a really good book for a standalone fantasy novel. It's very descriptive of the world, and it's very easy to read because it's not like other novels where authors are very flowery with their words, like there's too much metaphors. But in this book, everything is straight to the point and it's very easy to understand. And the world building is good because of that. But the romance is kind of okay. It wasn't insta romance. It wasn't... For me, it was bearable. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
What did I give it?
You gave it a 5.
So my third book is called The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. It's a futuristic, I don't know if it's dystopian. Yeah, maybe dystopian young adult book that's about like in the future, maybe 2065. So Earth is becoming unlivable, so the people decide to go start a colony in this planet called Earth 2. And then NASA sends this spaceship with astronauts in it with supplies and stuff so that they can prepare Earth for the Earth's population. So anyway, there's this girl whose parents was in that spaceship, and then she was born and raised in that spacecraft, and a lot of things happened when she was born. What I liked about this book is that how the narrative worked, like the events were unfolded nicely. Like there would be cliffhangers like, oh, what happened to her parents? What happened to the astronauts? Who's this other spacecraft? The details weren't exposed straight away. What I liked about the writing is how there was a gradual exposure of what happened in this spaceship. The narrative involves the character's point of view, and then emails between her and NASA, and then emails between her and another spaceship that was sent to help her spaceship because she's by herself. Kind of reminded me of the Illuminate files. I thought it was a cute and easy read. There were some parts that were a bit scary, like she could hear things like the astronauts.
The dead astronauts.
Yeah. Astronauts. I kind of didn't like the romance. It was semi-insta romance. But then again, when you're alone and you're isolated, you don't have anyone to talk to. I guess that plays a role. And I thought the ending was a bit, what? Huh? I gave it a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. Okay, we're gonna take the mask off. I feel so fresh. Time to moisturize.
So I listened to an audiobook. I just found this in one of the library apps. 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life by Andrea Owen. It's one of those self-help books and self-improvement books. It's around 5 hours, so I was just listening to it when I'm cleaning, doing the dishes. I just think the advices are just too general, and there's just too many, and they're all pretty much interrelated. Because since last year, we've listened to The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah, that was good.
One of the cards here, best books of 2018. But one of the things that really got into me was get out of your comfort zone kind of advices. So I really need that.
Growth is outside your comfort zone.
I think the advices were pretty generic, but it's pretty interesting to listen to. You have to reinforce yourself. Not just listen to it, but put into action.
The advice into action.
True. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
The last book we're gonna talk about is The City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. We both read it last month. It's about Cassidy, who sees ghosts, and her parents happen to be ghost hunters. But her parents don't know that she can see ghosts, and she has a ghost best friend. One day, her parents get this TV deal to go to Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh.
In the Europe. In the Europe. Edinburgh. Bruh. Because they put the pronunciation there. It's like
I've been reading it Edinburgh. But it's Edinburgh.
So they go to Edinburgh, which happens to be like literally a city of ghosts. Because from Cassidy's point of view, she can see ghosts through this veil.
The veil is like
The divide between the living and the dead. Through the veil, she sees, like, example, there's this like really big square, but that square happened to be a place where people got executed back in the day, and then she can see like all those who have been executed. And then there's this big cemetery where the main villain lives, and then there's this tunnel where it's so eerie, and she can see through the veil. Even when it's middle grade, when you say middle grade, it's like, oh yeah, it's for kids. I really enjoyed it because of the world building, how Victoria Schwab described the human world and the ghost world and the veil that divides it, the character development. Like, I don't understand how a 12-year-old like Cassidy can make such mature decisions. The writing's just very clear, easy to understand. There's even mini action scenes at the end that were pretty good. I liked it overall.
a very easy read. And I liked it because there were a lot of Harry Potter references, like that cafe where J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series. Cassidy went there and just fangirling over Harry Potter. I really like how the parents are very adventurous and very supportive of their child. I really like the relationship of Cassidy and her best friend Jacob, and I think it's really platonic and cute, but I ship them.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I gave it a 4.25.
Why?
I think it just felt very middle grade-ish. But it's a really good book for a middle grade.
It's very good.
Yeah, I'm excited to read the next book that's coming out.
Tunnel of Ghosts.
Tunnel of Bones. It's set in Paris. So that's all the books that we read in January. It was a pretty good reading month for the start of 2019. And if you have any thoughts about the book we've read, if you've read it too, let's talk about it down below.
If you haven't watched our videos, the best and the worst books we've read last year, check them out.
We'll see you in another video.